It's hard to believe, but as we head toward the next era of Formula One, the 2026 engine shakeup is already sending shockwaves across the paddock. You've probably seen the headlines. Mercedes will be supplying power units to 4 teams next season. Their own works team, McLaren, Williams, and now Alpine, who ditched their entire engine program earlier this year. That's right, Alpine, once proud of their in-house power unit, decided to shut it all down and buy Mercedes power instead. But here's where things get really interesting. Most of the engineers who worked on that old Alpine engine, they didn't just disappear. Many of them were snapped up by Ferrari. Now, at first glance, that sounds like a win for Ferrari, bringing in a group of experienced engine specialists ahead of the 2026 regulations. But according to new reports, those same engineers were shocked by what they found when they arrived in Maranello. Some of them are apparently saying that Ferrari's early 2026 engine design is in worse shape than the one they were building back at Alpine. Think about that for a second. An engine project so concerning that even engineers from a shutdown division are calling it a downgrade. If those rumours are even partly true, Ferrari could be in serious trouble heading into 2026. Remember, the next regulation change isn't just about horsepower. It's about hybrid integration, fuel technology, and reliability. Mercedes seems confident. Red Bull powertrains with Ford is reportedly very strong, but still working through reliability issues. And now Ferrari? They're facing questions about whether their engine will even be competitive. It's crazy to imagine Ferrari, one of the most iconic teams in motorsport history, starting a new era behind the curve. But the truth is, the warning signs have been there for a while. The last few seasons have shown that their power unit has struggled to match the top-end speed and efficiency of Mercedes and Honda. And with Alpine's engineers reportedly unimpressed by what they've seen inside Ferrari's labs, the Scuderia might be fighting uphill again. Still, it's not all doom and gloom. If there's one thing Ferrari knows, it's how to recover from a setback. They've got resources, talent, and a massive amount of pride on the line. Maybe these new hires are exactly what the team needs to turn things around. People willing to challenge old methods and push for innovation before 2026 hits. But for now, one question remains. Can Ferrari fix these engine issues before it's too late? I'd really like to know what you think about that. Do you believe Ferrari can pull off a comeback in time for the next regulation change? Or are they destined to start another season chasing Red Bull and Mercedes? Let me know down in the comments. I read every one of your takes. And if you're enjoying the video so far, make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Your support really helps us grow and reach our next big milestone of 2,000 subscribers, so you never miss an F1 update when stories like this break. Because honestly, this whole engine situation might just be the start of something much bigger. Speaking of the next big thing, have you noticed how Formula E has suddenly become part of the F1 conversation again? Yeah, I know. It's not usually something we talk about here, but there's a reason it's getting attention. Formula E cars are about to hit nearly 850 horsepower in attack mode, which means their straight line speeds are getting closer than ever to what we see in Formula 1. That's wild when you think about it. Electric cars closing the gap on F1 performance. But the reason this matters isn't just about the power numbers. It's about what these changes mean for the future of racing technology. And that includes Formula 1. You see, Formula E recently unveiled its new tyre design, and it's caught the eye of a lot of people across the motorsport world. Bridgestone is back, and they've introduced grooved tyres that look surprisingly similar to the ones Formula 1 used years ago. Now, I'm not saying F1 should go back to grooved tyres. That's not what anyone's asking for. But it does raise an interesting question about Pirelli's long-term role in the sport. Remember, earlier this year, there was a bidding war between Bridgestone and Pirelli for the official F1 tyre contract. In the end, Pirelli kept the job, but not everyone was thrilled about that outcome. A lot of fans, And even some drivers have questioned whether the current Pirelli compounds are really giving us the kind of racing we deserve. I mean, think about how many one-stop races we've had lately. The tyres just don't degrade enough, which means fewer strategy calls and less on-track drama. And that's the thing. Tyres define how good a race is. When everyone can easily manage a one-stop strategy, there's less room for bold moves or surprise comebacks. Just look at how many times this season we've seen Hamilton or Verstappen say the same thing. It's just a procession out there. The harder the tyres, the more predictable the race. So, what if there was another tyre supplier to shake things up? Imagine if Bridgestone came back and challenged Pirelli head-on, forcing both to innovate and bring out the best compounds for racing. It could completely change how teams plan strategies and how drivers approach tyre management. It's been nearly 2 decades since we had a tyre war in Formula One, and while it came with its own problems back then, it definitely made things unpredictable. Of course, no one wants to go back to the chaos of unsafe tyres or massive performance gaps, but maybe competition in that space wouldn't be such a bad thing. It might even bring back some of the excitement we've lost in the era of ultra-durable rubber. So, let me throw this out to you. Would you actually want to see another tyre manufacturer go head-to-head with Pirelli in F1? Just a simple yes or no in the comments. I'm really curious what you think. And hey, if you're new to the channel, remember to hit the like button and subscribe to Fast News F1. We're pushing toward 2,000 subscribers, and your support helps us keep covering all the stories the mainstream outlets often skip. Because, from tyres and technology to the human drama behind the scenes, the next few seasons could reshape everything we know about Formula One. And speaking of drama, the next story is one that shocked the entire F1 community for all the wrong reasons. Alright, now let's talk about something that shook the entire F1 paddock, the McLaren grave controversy and Alpine's dramatic collapse. If you've been following the latest headlines, you probably saw that image circulating online. A mock McLaren grave, created by a group of frustrated Alpine fans. Yeah, it sounds crazy, but it actually happened. A symbolic tombstone with McLaren's logo on it, meant to represent Alpine's frustration over being overtaken, both on and off the track. But this isn't just about a viral photo, it's about what it represents. The complete collapse of Alpine's F1 project and how that failure is now haunting other teams, including Ferrari and even McLaren themselves. Because when Alpine decided to shut down their entire power unit division earlier this year, it didn't just end an era, it sent shockwaves through the engineering job market. Dozens of highly skilled engine specialists suddenly became free agents, and teams like Ferrari, Aston Martin and McLaren wasted no time scooping them up. Now, here's the twist. Many of those ex-Alpine engineers have reportedly shared alarming stories about what went wrong behind the scenes. A lack of leadership, poor communication between departments, and a total absence of long-term vision. Sound familiar? Because that's exactly what people have been accusing Ferrari of lately too. And as for McLaren, they might be celebrating a huge performance boost this season, but not. Everything's as perfect as it seems. Multiple insiders claim that the team is already facing pressure to expand faster than their infrastructure can handle, especially with the new Mercedes engine deal for 2026 and the surge in sponsorships. It's a good problem to have, but it's still a problem. There's a fine line between growing fast and growing too fast, and McLaren is walking right on that edge. The thing is, Alpine's downfall is becoming a case study of what not to do in Formula One. They had the money, they had the people, and they even had a factory team with a long-term commitment. And yet, they fell apart because of politics and mismanagement. That's the part that's got everyone nervous. Teams like Ferrari and McLaren are looking at Alpine and realizing how quickly things can crumble if leadership loses focus. And it's not just fans talking about this. Some drivers have even started speaking up. Oscar Piastri, for example, recently made a subtle comment about how lucky he feels to have joined McLaren when he did, instead of staying in a less stable environment. We all know what team he's talking about there. So the big question is, could Alpine's mistakes serve as a warning sign for others, or are we just watching history repeat itself? Because if Ferrari's engine rumours are true and McLaren starts stretching itself too thin, the same kind of collapse could easily happen again, just under a different name. But what do you think? Was Alpine doomed from the start? Or could they have turned things around if they'd handled things differently? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear your take on which team might be the next to fall into the same trap. And before we move on, don't forget, if you're enjoying this breakdown, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us grow, and we're aiming for 2,000 subscribers to keep bringing you the fastest F1 news with zero fluff. Because up next, we're diving into something that might just redefine the entire future of Formula One. And it involves a surprising connection between Audi, Honda, and a potential power shift that could shake the grid to its core. Now, let's talk about what might be the most underrated power struggle brewing behind the scenes: Audi versus Honda. Because while everyone's been focused on Red Bull, Mercedes, and Ferrari, these two manufacturers are quietly setting up one of the most fascinating showdowns heading into 2026. Let's start with Audi. When they officially confirmed their commitment to join F1 as a full works team, a lot of fans were excited, but also skeptical. Could a company that's never built a Formula One power unit really go head-to-head with Mercedes and Red Bull powertrains right out of the gate? Well, here's what's interesting. Recent reports suggest Audi's 2026 engine project is way ahead of schedule. Their dyno tests in Nürburgring are reportedly showing performance numbers that are already competitive with Mercedes' early 2026 benchmarks. Now, take that with a grain of salt. Every team loves hyping up its progress. But what really stands out is how Audi's approach is completely different from what we've seen in modern F1. They're not just building an engine, they're designing the entire car and power unit together in parallel, like one integrated system. That's something even Ferrari and Mercedes struggled to do consistently in the hybrid era. Meanwhile, Honda, who left, then came back, then sort of left again, is once again fully committed to the sport. They'll be partnering with Aston Martin in 2026, and insiders say their new power unit could be their most efficient hybrid ever. And honestly, after seeing what Honda did with Red Bull's engines from 2021 to 2023, no one's underestimating them anymore. The big question is, who's going to come out on top in this next generation of engines? Audi with its methodical German engineering and all-new technology, or Honda with its years of F1 hybrid experience and proven track record of turning things around? Here's the twist. Both of these manufacturers could indirectly decide the fate of teams like Red Bull and Mercedes. Because if Audi comes in strong, they'll immediately put pressure on Red Bull's new Ford partnership to deliver. And if Honda's Aston Martin package works right out of the box, it could suddenly make Fernando Alonso's dream of fighting for a title one last time way more realistic than people think. It's kind of poetic, isn't it? Honda, the company that left the sport right before Red Bull's domination, coming back with a vengeance. And Audi, a complete newcomer, trying to prove that German innovation can challenge F1's old guard. But honestly, I think this is what F1 needs right now, man. Shake up. We've had years of dominance by just 2 or 3 teams. If Audi and Honda both deliver, 2026 might give us the most balanced and unpredictable grid in a decade. So here's a quick poll for you guys. Who do you think will have the better power unit in 2026? Audi or Honda? Drop your vote in the comments, and let's see where the community stands on this one. And hey, while you're there, make sure to subscribe to Fast News F1 if you haven't already. We're pushing toward 2,000 subscribers, and your support helps us keep posting the fastest, most reliable F1 stories out there, all without the boring corporate talk. Here we are, Mercedes versus Red Bull, the ultimate power play heading into 2026. It feels like we've been building up to this moment for years, right? On one side, you've got Red Bull, the current kings of Formula One, riding a wave of dominance that started in 2021 and shows no real signs of stopping. On the other, Mercedes, the team that once ruled the hybrid era with an iron fist, now desperately trying to claw its way back to the top. And the question everyone's asking is simple. Who's really going to own the next generation of F1? Let's start with Mercedes. If you've been paying attention to Toto Wolff's recent comments, you'll notice a quiet confidence that wasn't there a year ago. The 2026 power unit program at Brixworth is reportedly one of the most advanced Mercedes has ever built, and they're already testing key components months ahead of schedule. Add that to the fact that they'll be supplying not just their own team, but also McLaren, Williams, and Alpine. And suddenly, Mercedes isn't just competing. They're controlling a quarter of the grid's power supply. That's massive influence. But there's another layer to this. Lewis Hamilton. His move to Ferrari in 2025 has forced Mercedes to look beyond the present and fully commit to a long-term rebuild. George Russell is already locked in as their next-generation leader. And depending on how the driver market shakes out, they might bring in another young star to build around. Someone like Andrea Kimi Antonelli, or even Lando Norris in the near future. The pieces are there. It's just a question of whether they can make them fit before Red Bull runs away again. Speaking of Red Bull, even with all the internal drama we've seen around Christian Horner, Helmut Marko, and the Power Unit project, their performance edge remains unmatched. The RB21 is still the class of the field, and while the competition has closed in slightly, Max Verstappen and Adrian Newey's design philosophy continue to set the standard. The real wildcard here is Red Bull Powertrains itself. For the first time, they're responsible for producing their own engines, with Ford's help, of course. But everyone's wondering if they can actually pull it off at the same level as Mercedes or Ferrari. Because remember, building a competitive F1 engine isn't something you just figure out in a few seasons. Even with Ford's resources and Red Bull's brilliance, there's always the risk that reliability, thermal efficiency, or energy recovery systems might become their weak points early on. If that happens, 2026 could be the first season in years where Red Bull doesn't start as the favourite. And that's where Mercedes sees their opening. They're betting everything on timing, that Red Bull's transition to Ford will take longer than expected, and that they can strike right as that partnership hits its growing pains. It's a risky play, but if it works, Mercedes could reclaim the throne they lost in 2021 and start a brand new chapter of dominance. But here's the beautiful part. Unlike the early hybrid years this time, there's no guarantee of who'll get it right. Between Audi's entry, Honda's comeback with Aston Martin, Ferrari's internal chaos, and Mercedes' massive rebuild, 2026 might just be the most unpredictable start to a Formula One era we've ever seen. So, let me throw the final question to you. Who do you think will come out on top in 2026? Will Mercedes make their grand return? Will Red Bull stay on top despite all the pressure? Or could we see a complete curveball like Audi or Aston Martin shocking the world? Drop your predictions in the comments below. I'll be reading your takes and replying to as many as I can. And before you go, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to Fast News F1 if you haven't yet. Your support helps us grow, and we're so close to hitting our goal of 2,000 subscribers. Every click, every comment, every share, it all helps us keep delivering the fastest, most exciting F1 stories straight to you. Because if there's one thing we know about Formula One, the second you think it's predictable, it finds a way to surprise us all over again.